just speak for a minute before we start then? Or Sarua, you can. It's hot. He doesn't want to turn it down. I asked him already.
I always try to wear one.
I am wearing
That
lightweight.
light,
but
yeah, I
the
always go for the
tali-
lightest thing.
Yeah.
No paparazzi.
As we get ready to start our service, I want to begin by wishing everyone Shabbat Shalom, Good Yantif, Gamar Chatima Tova, and I know I don't have to tell all of you, because you're living it, that this is the one time a year that Jews come to shul on time for services. And I think that we do so for a lot of reasons. We do so because we want to hear the announcement that comes before Kol Nidrei, B'yeshiva Shomala, V'shiva Shomata, and the authority of the court on high and on the authority of the court in this world, in the earth, that we gather together, each one of us, as people who have done our best, but who have maybe missed the mark sometime. And knowing that we are doing so with others, somehow the idea that we can then confront our own shortcomings becomes just a little bit easier. And there's something really magical about the Kol Nidrei prayer you may or may not be aware of, which is that when the Kol Nidrei prayer was brought into our tradition, it was the rabbis who protested. The rabbis who said you can't have some sort of magical formula that just somehow says whatever we've done just is erased and therefore you're done. And in what was probably one of the most democratic moves of all, which is true of Judaism in general, the people said, sorry, we're doing it anyway. And it became a regular part of this service, of this evening. And I think that we're all seasoned enough, not just in age, but in our own thinking and in our own intelligence and our own emotional intelligence, to know that it's not so simple as just saying somehow everything magically goes away. Everything is magically better. But rather, the Kol Nidrei prayer, which we recite with such emotional music, is really about asking us, each of us, to say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do in this moment? What do I need to do in the next 25 hours? What do I need to do in the next week, the next month, the next year? Because even though we say everything's done at the end of the Yom Kippur, we know that it's not. And so this is our opportunity to sit in reflection of how things can look and to imagine the possible if we're our best selves. And when we do so, the world can transform, we can transform, and our relationships can transform in ways that will ultimately bring salvation into the world. And so we're going to begin on page 204, Or Zarua. I know that you all know you have this amazing tradition of having the past presidents come in with the Sifrei Torah, and so I'm going to invite them to be a part of this glorious moment. Please rise.
As in our past, we honor our past presidents. We will also include the presidents who are not with us today. Past presidents include Elliot Brody, Alan Zuckert, Bud Hockenberg, who will be carrying, Gary Rubin, who was not with us today, and in case nobody knew, his wife Judy passed away about 10 days ago. Tim Urban will be carrying. Evelyn Mincer will not be carrying, but she will be invited to the front of the bema. Lou Hockenberg will be carrying. I will be carrying in the first rotation, and Frank Markovas will be carrying in the first rotation.
Or Zaru ala Tzadik, O Yisraelev, Simcha. 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 Or Zaru ala Tzadik, O Yisraelev, Simcha.
Bottom of page 204.
Bishiva shel mala ubishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal, anu materin lehitpalel im havayanim.
Shiva Shamala, Shiva Shamata, Al Data Makam, Al Data Ka, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים בישיבה של מעלה ובשיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל. אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים. By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of the court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with all of those who have transgressed. Kol Nidrei, page 205.
Kol Nidrei Vesarei Vacharamei Vekonamei Vechinuyei Vekinusei Ushvuot Din Darna Udevishtovana Udacharimena Vedasarna Anashatana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Ad Yom Kippurim Habat Aleinu L'Tova Kulahon Acharat Navahon Kolahon Yahon Sharan Shevitin Betelin Umutavin Lasharirin Velakayamin Nidrana La Nidrei Vesarana Lesarei Ushvuatana La Shavuot.
The threefold repetition of the Kol Nidrei prayer derives from an ancient practice of reciting all official proclamations 3 times. The Midrash explains it differently, saying that we first sing in a quiet, awe-filled voice, like a servant entering the ruler's chambers for the first time. The second time we go a bit louder, symbolic of a servant approaching the royal throne. And third, we go full voice as a subject in the presence of the ruler, confident of mercy and forgiveness.
Kol Nidrei Vesarei Vacharamei Vekonamei Vechinuyei Vekinusei Ushvuot Din Darna Udeishtevana Udacharimena Vedasarna Anafshetana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Ad Yom Kippurim Haba Aleinu L'Tova Kulahon Acharat Navahon Kolahon Yahon Sharan Shevitin Betelin Uvutalin Lasharirin Velakayamin Nidrana La Nidrei Vesarana Lesarei Ushvuatana La Shavuot.
The second rotation included Frank Markovas, Josh Engman, and we also remember the recent passing of Brad Brody, Don Shane, Brad Long, and Jody Jacklin. The third rotation will include Harvey Giller, Will Rogers, Jacob Liederman is not here tonight, Phil Bear is not here tonight, Maggie Matijevich, Larry Blumberg and Gloria Bernstein will be holding.
Ribono shel olam, I hereby forgive whoever has hurt me and whoever has done me wrong, whether done by accident or deliberately, whether done by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account. May it be your will, O Lord our God, God of our ancestors, that we sin no more, that we do not revert to our old ways, that we do not anger you anymore with our actions, and that we do not do that which is evil in your sight. Wipe away the sins that we have committed with your great compassion, but not through sickness or suffering. May the words of my mouth and the prayers that are in our hearts be acceptable before you, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen.
Kol Nidrei v'sarei v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei u'shvuot din darna u'deishtevana u'dacharimena v'dasarna al-nashatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu l'tova kulahon acharat nevahon kulahon yahon sharan shevikin shevitin betelin u'betalin lasharin velakayamin nidrana lanidrei vesarana vesarei u'shvuatana lashavuot. V'nislach l'chol adam b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar betocham ki l'chaham bishgaga salach na lavon ham hazeh kegodel chasdecha v'chasher nasat alam hazeh mimisraim vad heina l'sham nehemar.
Moses prayed, as befits your abundant love, please forgive this people's sin, just as you have always forgiven this people from the time of the exodus from Egypt until now. And therefore it says, Adonai replied, I have forgiven as you have asked.
Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha.
We join together in singing the Shechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazaman hazeh.
Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us to this time. Amen. The Tifereth Israel put away. Once they're done, you may be seated. Yai, nai, 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 nai. Yai, nai, 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 nai. Yai, nai, 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 yai, nai, 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 nai. Yai, nai, 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 nai. this year, Yom Kippur and Shabbat coincides. Yom Kippur is actually known as Shabbat Shabbaton, the mother of all Shabbats, if you will, meaning that there is no day that is holier on the Jewish calendar than Shabbat than is Yom Kippur. And so you'll notice a few additions, a few changes to our liturgy because of it being Shabbat, where we'll want to mark both Shabbat and Yom Kippur, and the beginning of that is on page 206 with the Psalms for the day, for Shabbat day.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ונתך בלילות. צדיק התמר יפרח, כרס בלבנון יזכה, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו להקיא, כי ישר אדוני צורי, ולא עוולתה בו. אדוני מלך גאות לבש, לבש אדוני עוז התזר, אף תיכון תבל בל תימון. עדותיך נמנו מאוד, לביתך נאווה הקודש, אדוני, לאורך ימים.
Before we go into the Mariv service, it's my pleasure, there you are, to call upon Gloria Bernstein, our president, to share a few words. And I want to just take this moment to acknowledge Gloria, but really all of the members of the board of directors, the volunteers, the people who have stepped up to not only help make this holiday season happen, but really to keep the synagogue going on a regular basis. So thank you to each one of you. Maybe stand if you are a seasoned board member, seasoned volunteer, someone who has been helping to make things happen. Please stand so you can be recognized. We don't tend to clap in shul, but we can, snap our fingers. Please stand so we can recognize you. Thank you to each one of you, and Gloria.
Lashana Tova. I'm Gloria Bernstein, your Tifereth Israel Synagogue president. It is an honor and privilege to stand before you today. My hope is to continue our traditions, increase participation, provide a safe community for our members, and create new traditions to strengthen our future. Most of you know me. I am a third-generation member of Tifereth. At Tifereth, I attended Sunday school, Hebrew school, and celebrated my bat mitzvah here. Growing up attending services, I used to sit with my family, my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, and cousins. It was on the left side, 8th row. The Oringer family sat in the back on the left side. The Pigeon family always sat on the left side. The Pomerantz and Rabinowitz family always sat in front, as did the Bear family. As a young child, I often wondered if someday I would have the opportunity to serve the community in a greater capacity. I hope you will attend services more often, so I too remember where you sit. My hope is that you too will find a way to contribute with your resources, talents, and time. Let us all continue to make a difference together. There have been many challenges. We have a strong board with a clear vision. I am grateful for their participation and knowledge. I am so thankful for all Tifereth members, our board, committee chairs, committees, and donors. Thank you, Rabbi Peretz, Deirdre, and everyone who has helped coordinate our high holiday services. We are truly blessed. I would also like to thank Christy, Manuel, and Nevaeh for their dedication and service. To those who think we can't, we can. We need to work together. If you think you are not needed, you are. Together, we all can make a difference. I believe we have the strength and courage to shape our future. Thank you for joining us for services. Shana Tova. I also want to remind you, because my treasurer said to do this, that there is a Yom Kippur appeal card out front in the atrium. I also want to thank Women's League for the flowers with the Lewis and Marilyn Hurwitz Flower Fund. And please see the announcements sheets for the dates and times also in the atrium. Thank you for being here.
We're going to turn to the beginning of what is the evening service. And as I said on Rosh Hashanah, you'll notice that while the melody is special for high holidays, the beginning of our service actually is very similar to would be any other Shabbat in terms of the words until we get to parts of the silent Amidah. So we're going to begin on page 207 with the Baruch Hu. Please rise. May be seated. We continue silently through the bottom of the page.
El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'ma'ariv Ha'ravim.
Page 208. Avat Olam, Beit Yisrael Chadadur.
Ve'ahavatech Al Tasir Mimenu Le'olamim Baruch Atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Ve'ahavta Et Adonai Elohecha V'chol lemavcha v'chol nafshecha V'chol meodecha V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele Asher Anochi metzavecha Hayom alevavecha V'shinantam levanecha V'dibarta bam V'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvlechtecha b'derech U'shochtecha al kumecha U'kshartam leot al yadecha Ve'ayu letotafot beinenecha U'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha U'visharecha. We continue silently on page 209, and if the words in the middle of the page don't work for you throughout our services, look at the commentary around the side. There's some really beautiful additions.
Adonai Elohechem emet emet ve'emunah kol zot ve'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ein zulato ve'anachnu Yisrael Amo.
Continue on to page 210.
Umalchuto b'ratzon kibalu aleihem Moshe u'Miriam uvnei Yisrael l'chanu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chulam michamocha b'elim Adonai
Mikamocha nedar b'kodesh Norah tehilot osef eleh
Malchut Aharon uvanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe ze'eli anu ve'amaru Adonai lo leolam va'ed v'ne'emar ki fadad Adonai et Yaakov ugalom yad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
Page 211.
Ashkivenu Ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha Baruch atah Adonai Haporeis sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Please rise, page 212 for the Veshamru.
V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafash ki vayom hazeh yuchaper aleichem v'teher etchem mikol chatotechem lifnei Adonai titharu.
For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure. Following the Chatzi Kaddish on 212, we'll continue with the silent Amidah, pages 213 to 221, using the words on the page or the words in your own heart.
Yitgadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabbah Balamad Yivrakute Ve'yamlich Malchute B'chayechon uvimechon U'chayei B'chol Beit Yisrael B'gala Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen Yehesh Shmei Rabbah Mevarach L'olam u'lamei aliyah Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei Shadar Vitale Vitalal, Shemay de Kucha, Brihu, Le'ela, Le'ela, Mikol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechemata, Damiran Be'alema, V'imru Amen.
Silent Amidah again, pages 213 to 221. shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ya Kol Israel. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ya Kol Israel. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ya Kol Israel. Yase shalom, yase shalom, shalom aleinu, ya Kol Israel. Imru amen. Shabbat. We are obsessed with work. During the work, we rest so we can go back to work. We play so we can go back to work. We love so that we can go back to work. One ulterior motive after another, worrying over the past, living in the future, but one day each week, there is a day devoted to being present, the seventh day. On that day, we do not have to go anywhere or do anything. Everything is done, and we're already here. We turn to page 222 for additions for Shabbat. Please rise.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל זבם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, קונה שמיים וארץ, מגן אבות בדברו,
מחיי מתים במאמרו, המלך הקדוש שאין כמוהו, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו, כי בם רצה להניח להם, כי בם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד וירא ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד, מעון הברכות אל ההודעות, אדון השלום, מקדש השבת ומברך שביעי, ומניח בקדושה לים בקדושני עונג, זכר למעשה בראשית.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, רצי מנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעובדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון, שבת קודשך בנוחלבה ישראל, מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. You may be seated. Yasher koach to Deirdre. You'll remember that on Rosh Hashanah we talked about how the focus of the service, particularly in the morning, is a little bit different than we're used to thinking about on a regular Shabbat. On a regular Shabbat, going to be a couple minutes if you want to sit down. On a regular Shabbat, we're used to focusing on the morning service, on the Shacharit service and the Torah reading. And on the high holidays in the morning, our focus is on the Musaf service, the additional service, where all the extra poetry and all the extra prayers that we think of come in. On Yom Kippur, this next part of the service, which you caught a glimpse of in the silent Amidah, is actually the focus of our service, and that's the Slichot and Vidui, the verses and prayers of forgiveness and confession. And anybody know how many times we repeat this during Yom Kippur? Anybody want to take a guess? Not 35. A little less. We're actually going to say a version of it 9 times. 9's a little bit of an odd number. Usually in Judaism we do things in even numbers. But we have the evening service in the silent Amidah, and we're now going to do a repetition. We have the morning service, the Shacharit service, in the silent repetition and in the out loud. We have the Musaf service, the additional service, where we'll do it twice. And we have the Mincha service in the afternoon, where we'll do it twice. That's only 8. And then in the Ela, we do it only 1 time in the private Amidah, because by that time, as the gates are closing, to think that we're still going to try to change the outcome might be a little bit, like spinning our wheels. So we don't do it out loud during the Ne'ilah service. But these verses and these prayers are in many ways to remind us first that if we're going to come to try to ask for to be seen, and we're going to come to ask to be granted the ability to be better, you first want to know that it's an audience that wants to hear that. And so we remind ourselves first of God's capacity for love, God's capacity for tshuva, for return, God's capacity to listen and be with us, so that hopefully by the time we then get to the confession, we're a little bit more attuned to being willing to take the chance of showing our vulnerability. But I want to offer you another thing this year, particularly when it's been so difficult for some, I know, in the past months, the past year. And that's that just as we think of, like we say, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Al Chet Shechatranu, and we pound our chest, it's not, as I said on Rosh Hashanah, I don't believe it's just about pounding our chest to hurt ourselves. I want to offer you 2 things that maybe you can choose one or both throughout the day to think about in these 9 repetitions. The first is that I think of when we're hitting our heart, that the things that happen, the ways we miss the mark, the pain that it causes other people when we do things that we wish we hadn't, or when we watch and witness what it looks like when other people stray away from who they are, it hurts our heart. It hurts to watch and witness and to know that we have fallen short. And so the pounding of our heart is less about punishment and more about an acknowledgement that it actually hurts a little bit. And if you don't like that explanation, one other I want to just offer you is maybe don't pound. Just kind of soothe your heart a little bit. Right? Just give it a little bit of a rub, just as you would your child's back if they were trying to go to sleep or not able to. Because that's what we're here for. We're not here to beat ourselves up and to walk out feeling worse than we came in. We're actually here in order to find peace, to find ways to grow, and to find ways to support each other in that endeavor. And I want to just tell you a preview for tomorrow, so come in the morning, because we're going to flip the Ashamnu on its head when we say Ashamnu, Bagadnu, all the different sins we've committed. We're going to actually hear a collection of ways that we have succeeded, we've loved, we've supported. So you can wait for that tomorrow, but maybe you can think of what you would add to the list if you want this evening. But we're going to begin on page 223 with this beautiful poem that's intended to help us just open our hearts to the Slichot and Vidui.
Ya'ale tachanunenu מערב, ויבוא שובתנו מבוקר, ויראה רנוננו עד ערב. יעלה קולנו מערב, ויבוא צדקתנו מבוקר, ויראה פדיוננו עד ערב.
May our supplications rise up at evening, our pleas arrive with the dawn, our songs transform the dusk. May our voices rise up at the evening, our righteous acts arrive with the dawn, our redemption transform the dusk. May our suffering rise up at the evening, our forgiveness arrive with the dawn, our purity transform the dusk. May our prayers rise up at evening, coming to you with the dawn, transforming us at dusk. Last stanza at the bottom of the page.
יעלה תחנוננו מערב, ויבוא שבתנו מבוקר, ויראה רנוננו אלינו עד ערב.
Turn now to page 225, one of my very favorite, just short pieces that talks about the body, the creation of the body and the soul. And we'll do that first in Hebrew, then in English.
הנשמה לך והגוף פולח, חוסה חוסה על המלאך, הרשמה לך והגוף פולח, חוסה חוסה על המלאך, הנשמה לך והגוף שלך, אדוני עשה למען שמך. יאי לי לי, יאי לי לי, יאי לי לי,
soul is yours, the human body your creation. Have compassion upon your handiwork. The soul and the body are yours. Deal compassionately with us for your name's sake. We come before you trusting in your name, Adonai. Deal compassionately with us for your name's sake, for the glory of your name, because your name is gracious and compassionate God. For your name's sake, Adonai, forgive our sin, for it is great.
Yai lai lai, 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 yai lai lai.
Continue in the middle of page 225.
דרכך אלוהינו להעריך אפיך ולרעים ולטובים, והיא תהילתך. למענך אלוהינו Aseh v'lo lanu Rei amidatenu Dalim v'reikim Ta'alerucha la'aleh niftaf Tinachem al afar ve'efer Tashlik tachenu V'tachon b'masecha Terein ish aseh manu tzedakah
If you've been invited to do a reading, please come up forward at the time throughout tonight, tomorrow morning, so that you're up here and we see you. But this is a poem by the Israeli poet Zelda.
In that strange night, someone asked, "Can you change the past?" And the woman who was ill angrily responded, "The past is not a piece of jewelry sealed up in a crystal box, nor is it a snake preserved in a bottle of formaldehyde. The past trembles within the present, and when the present falls into a pit, the past goes with it. When the past looks towards heaven, all of life is upraised, even the distant past." But the lonely man muttered, "Did not Abraham once stride the earth, he who did not seem attached to even the cord of the one who gave him birth?"
Page 227, we turn to another piece of poetry, Kinea Chomer, that we are clay in the hands of the potter. And we will read part of this in Hebrew, part of it in English, but I want you to think about the artisan. Think about what it looks like to be fashioned in the eye of an artist and to be molded in whatever material that artist is using. That's what this is talking about, that we are part of God's creative process and what that means about what we are, but also what it says about what we're doing here in the world. Kinea Chomer, page 227.
Kine kachomer beyad hayotzer birtzoto marchiv uvirtzoto mekatzer ken anachnu beyadecha chesed notzer Laberit habet ve'al tefen la'yetzer Hine ka'even beyad hametzatet birtzoto ches uvirtzoto mechatet Ken anachnu beyadecha v'nechayeu molet Laberit habet ve'al tefen la'yetzer
We are clay, you are the potter who shapes us at your will. Mold us into worthy vessels, even though we're only clay. Do not smash us if we prove imperfect. Remember, we are only clay. We are glass, you are the artisan who can form us into many shapes. Form us into finest crystals, even if you have to twist and turn us. But do not smash us if we are not pure. Remember, we are only glass. We are silver, you are the smith who molds us as you wish. Hammer us as you design, even though we are not gold. Do not smash us if we tarnish. Remember, we are only silver. We are the rudder, you are the helmsman who steers us to the left or to the right. Direct us to the shore you choose. Do not let us idly spin. Even if we consistently resist your grasp, remember that the waves are very strong. We are threads, you are the weaver who creates the patterns that you like. Weave us, God, into your plan. Make us supple, straight, and true. And do not discard us if we should be imperfect. Remember, We are only threads.
Ya nai nai, ya nai nai nai, ya nai nai, ya nai nai nai, ya nai nai, ya nai nai nai, ya nai nai nai, ya nai nai. Hine ke'irya beyad harokem, birtzoto meyasharu, birtzoto meyakem. Kein אנחנו בידך על קונה ונוקים לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה ככסף ביד הצורף ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מסרב כן אנחנו בידך ממציא למוסר טרף לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר יאי לי לי יאי לי 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 יאי לי לי
Top of page 232.
אל מלך יושב על כיסא רחמים. כמו שהודעת לעניו מקדם, כמו שכתוב, וירד אדוני בענן, ויתעצב כמו שם, ויקרא בשם אדוני.
Please rise.
ויעבור אדוני פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נוצר חסד לאלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטאה ונקה וסלקת על עווננו חטאתנו ונחלתנו.
We remain standing as the ark is open, page 233, Shema Kolenu, and we will repeat the lines after Benjamin.
ויאמר אדוני סלקתי כדבריך שמע קולנו אדוני אלוהינו חוס ורחם עלינו וקבל ברחמים ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו.
Shema Kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, v'kabel berachamim, berachamim uvratzon, et tefilatenu.
Yai nai 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 yai nai 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 yai nai 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 yai nai nai yai nai 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 yai nai yai nai nai Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem Al tashlichenu milfanecha v'rak kodshecha al tikach mimenu
Al tashlichenu milfanecha v'ruach kodshecha al tikach mimenu
Al tashlichenu letzikna kichlor kochenu al tazvenu
Al tashlichenu le'etzikna Kichlat kochenu al ta'azvenu, Hear our voice, Adonai our God. Be kind and have compassion for us. Willingly and lovingly accept our prayer. Turn us towards you, Adonai, and we will return to you. Make our days seem fresh as they once were. Do not cast us away from you. Do not take your holy presence from us. Do not cast us away as we grow old. Do not desert us as our energy wanes.
Eloheinu, Eloheinu, al tazvenu, al tichenu, Ulama'an shimcha gadol, timcho v'tizlach lavonenu, kakatu b'divrei kodshecha, lama'an shimcha Adonai, v'slachta lavoni kirabu.
On page 234, you may be seated if you'd like. We will be standing again on page 235, so up to you.
Eloheinu ve'Elohevotenu, silach lanu, mechalanu, chaper lanu, ay, ki anu amecha, ve'ata Eloheinu, anu vanecha, ve'ata avinu, anu avadecha, ve'ata Adonenu, anu keholecha, ve'ata chelkeinu, anu nachlatecha, ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzonecha, ve'ata roeinu, anu karmecha, ve'ata notreinu, anu ve'ulatecha, ve'ata yotzreinu, anu rayatecha, ve'ata doteinu, anu segulatecha, ve'ata keroveinu, anu amecha, ve'ata malkeinu, anu mamirecha, ve'ata mamireinu.
I'm going to give you one more minute to sit down because I want to talk about this just for a brief moment. Because again, this is one of those things we're going to repeat over and over again. Kianu amecha ve'ata avinu, like we are your people, you are our God, we are your children, you are our parents, we are the servants, the master, your flock, you are the shepherd, we are your vineyard, you are the guardian, right? Every one of these is a metaphor for how it is that we might see our relationship with God. Right? If you don't like one of them, don't worry, you don't have to agree with all of them. You just need to think about one. And maybe if one of these doesn't work, there's something else. And so I know we're a big group, but not such a big group. So I'm wondering, like, if you had to think about, like, we are your whatever, and you are the guardian of whatever that is, what might you add to this list? Maybe we'll just take one or two if anybody has any ideas. Anybody? That's a really good one to say, especially, I'm a big sports fan. I'm not a baseball fan, but if I were, what I know about my friends in California tonight, in Los Angeles especially, they're really having a hard time with the idea of Kol Nidrei tonight because the Dodgers are in a closeout game for the playoffs. So, yeah, we are your relief pitcher, and you're our, what was the second one? Bullpen, right. So, awesome. Anyone else? Yeah, Russell. We are your students. You are our teacher. Love it. So I want to just, again, invite you to keep thinking about this. Whether it's while we're singing this the next 8 times, or if it's at home tonight when you're not sure, or tomorrow when you're really starting to feel really hungry. And I would actually, you don't have to do it publicly, but I'd love to hear if you think of any other matches or pairs that you want to share. I'd love to hear them throughout Yom Kippur. We're going to continue in the middle of the page. This is where we make the transition from the idea of knowing that God is waiting for us to actually confessing to whatever it is that we need to think about today. Page 234.
Anu azefani v'taver rachum v'chanun anu kesheyoref ata erech apayim anu melei avon v'ata malei rachamim Anu yamenu kitzel ofer v'tahu v'ushnotecha lo yitamu Eloheinu Elohotenu tavo lefanecha tefilatenu ve'al titalamid tchichinatenu שאין אנחנו הזפנים ושעורף לומר לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו אבל אנחנו ואבותינו חטאנו
Please rise, top of page 235.
Ay, 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 Ashanu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, ay, 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 Yatsnu Rak, Kizavnu, Latnu, Maranu, Niatsnu, Saranu, Avinu, Pashanu, Saranu, Kishinu Oref, ay, 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 Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu.
Be seated for a brief moment.
Sarnu mitzvotecha mishpatecha hatovim velo sava halahanu v'tatzadik. Ha'hirshanu ufesha'anu lachen lo nohosanu. Eloheinu ki erbelis loach Eloheinu velohei avotenu Salach umachal avnotenu b'yom haShabbat hazeh u'yom haKippurim hazeh Mechel haveher peishanu v'chatotenu mineged einecha V'chofet yitzreinu v'hitaber lach v'haknaha orpeinu l'shuv elecha v'chadesh kilchotenu lishmor pikudecha u'molet levaveinu l'aval yira et shemecha kakatu b'toratecha u'mal Adonai Elohecha levavecha et lave levachav zerahecha lava et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha leman chayecha.
Today we stand before the mirror of all to see ourselves as we are. We come with no gifts, no bribes, no illusions, no excuses. We stand without defense and wait to be filled. What fills us? Remorse, certainly. So much error and needless pain. And joy, remembered moments of love and right doing. We are too complex for single-sided emotions. We are too simple to be excused by our complexity. Let us be bold enough to see, humble enough to feel, daring enough to turn, and embrace the way of justice, mercy, and simplicity. Of my distant relative, Rabbi Yitzhak of Berdichev, it is told that every year on Kol Nidrei, he would count up all the sins he committed during the year that was now over. And he would promise God not to do them again. And then he would ask himself, didn't you make the same promise to God last year? And he would reply, yes, this time I really mean it. I believe we mean it too, even if we meant it last year and missed the mark. And that is why we are here.
We turn now to page 237. Please rise for the Al Chet. Again, I want to just offer, if the long list is overwhelming for you, to try to either get through all the words or to get through emotionally, pick one and just ponder that one as we recite the Al Chet on page 237.
Al chet shekatan lefanecha be'ones u'vratzon ve'al chet shekatan lefanecha b'imut halev al chet shekatan lefanecha b'ilveda Al chet shekatan lefanecha b'yetzer hara ve'al chet shekatan lefanecha b'yomdim u'lo yadim ve'al kulam elo selichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu al chet shekatan lefanecha b'chachah shugusam al chet shekatan lefanecha b'chapat shochad al chet shekatan lefanecha b'einayim ramot ve'al chet shekatan lefanecha b'zuzot meitzach ve'al kulam elo selichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu ve'al kulam elo selichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu al chet shekatan lefanecha b'rikatol ve'al chet shekatan lefanecha b'fililu al chet shekatan lefanecha b'tshu bitzumat yad ve'al chet shekatan lefanecha b'timhon leva ve'al kulam elo slichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu ve'al kulam elo slichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu.
You may be seated.
תעשה ועל מצוות לא תעשה. וטרח ומקבל שבי ועל התשובה מראש הבטחתנו ועל התשובה עיניך מייחלות לך.
Page 240. We're in the middle section where we're talking about God who answered our ancestors, God who answered Sarah at the time of her youth giving birth to Isaac, God who answered Abraham and Moriah with the binding of Isaac, God who answered Isaac on the bound of the altar, God who answered Rebekah, God who answered Jacob and Leah and Rachel and Joseph and the Hebrew midwives and Yocheved and the people Israel at the sea and Moses and Miriam and Aaron and Pinchas and the daughters of Zelophehad and all those who are righteous, upright, decent, and compassionate. Please, God, answer us.
מי שענה לשרה עמנו וזקנתה הוא יעננו. מי שענה לאברהם אבינו בהר מוריה הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליצחק פנים כשקד על גיבור המזבח הוא יעננו. מי שענה לרבקה בהרויה הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליעקב בבית אל הוא יעננו. מי שענה לאבינו הוא יעננו. מי שענה לרחל בצפונה הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליוסף בבית הסורים הוא יעננו. מי שענה למידות העבריות על האבניים הוא יעננו. מי שענה ליוכבד על שפת היור הוא יעננו. מי שענה לאבותינו על ים סוף הוא יעננו. מי שענה למשה בחורב הוא יעננו. מי שענה למרים בעברה הוא יעננו. מי שענה לאהרון במחתה הוא יעננו. מי שענה לפנחס במקומו מתוך העדה הוא יעננו. מי שענה לבנו צלוף אחד בעומדו בהתך אוהל מועד הוא יעננו. מי שענה לכל הצדיקים והצדיקות והחסידים והחסידות והתמימים והתמימות והישרים והישרות והרחמינים והרחמניות הוא יעננו.
Normally we would be going from here to the Avinu Malkeinu on page 243. Because it's Shabbat, we'll only do Avinu Malkeinu during Ne'ilah tomorrow afternoon. But I want to tell you why, because it's an interesting story, right? On the one hand, we're sitting here and we're asking for things all day long, and yet the rabbis tell us that the reason we don't do Avinu Malkeinu when it's Shabbat is because we don't ask God to do specific things on Shabbat. And if you go back 2,000 years, there was a story of Choni the circle maker. And Choni the circle maker decided that he was going to implore God to do what he needed him to do. And sometimes it was actually worthy. And in particular, when Avinu Malkeinu comes up, it's when there wasn't rain. And he says, God, I'm going to stand and I'm going to make a circle around myself, which is how he got his name, the circle maker. And he said, I'm not moving until you bring rain. And the rain came down and 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 came down. A little more rain than he would have liked. And I'm sure some of our friends in Florida and North Carolina can imagine what it would be like to be asking God for that right now. But finally, he reckons with God and he says, okay, I get it. I'm not totally in control of what's happening here, but I still need to know how to ask you and when I can ask you. And so the story continues to develop about how which is a lesson for all of us, of how we learn when we think we're bargaining and when it's important to actually admit that we just don't have control. And so I think what the rabbis are really asking us to do by admitting Avinu Malkeinu on Shabbat when it falls on Yom Kippur is to have a little extra dose of submission in understanding that we live our lives like we're in control every single day. I don't know about you, I do too. I think about that every single day. I walk around like I know exactly what's going to happen and I can make it happen. And in reality, something then happens and we realize we're actually in control of nothing. And nowhere is that more obvious than on a day when we're thinking about life and death and our deeds and our actions and how to look for a new start. And so we don't do Avinu Malkeinu, but because I know everybody loves the melody, I just want us to take a moment and just sing the melody with no words. And sometimes melodies with no words have even more meaning than when we put the words to them. And so you can let your mind go where you need it to go right this moment as we just sing the melody.
Ay, 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 ay.
Before we go to full Kaddish, just one thing I forgot to mention when I was giving you that interjection is that there are some rabbinic authorities in Israel this year that have said they're specifically going to include Avinu Malkeinu, even though it's Shabbat, because the immediate need to call out to God to actually do, to act, to save, to change the course felt so urgent that they, in some communities, are including it. So if you feel like that's something you want to do, feel free to say it on your own, and we'll join together to say it during the Ela tomorrow afternoon. Full Kaddish, page 245.
Yai la 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 la, ya la la ya la la, ya la ya la ya la la, ya la la la. Yit gadal veyit kada shemei Rabba be'alma divrach irute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayet echol beit Yisrael ba'gala בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמירה במברך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לילה לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תנקבל צלותיהון ובאו תהון דכו ישראל קודם אבוהון דבי שמיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen.
Not yet. You will, sorry. I hate that sound, sorry. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. Before I share a few words, I want to make sure that you know, and I will repeat this numerous times tomorrow, that we hope that you will be with us throughout the day, and we'll be sitting and standing and standing and sitting, and as you know, every high holidays it's like that. But please, please know that your presence and your participation is far more important than if you're standing when we're sitting or sitting when we're standing, particularly when you're fasting. So when we invite people to stand, please know that that means to stand in whatever way you are able and to be with us in every way you are able. And particularly to those who are not well enough to join us who are online, we want you to know that we feel your presence as well and hope that you can feel connected to this community through this stream. Today is a day of confessions, and I will tell you now that both of my sermons will contain confessions. So the first confession, if you want to know tomorrow's confession, you have to come back tomorrow. But today's confession is that since, it's not a big one, don't worry, but since thinking about and the first conversation about joining this community for High Holidays, this is the sermon that I have most been thinking about and agonizing over. On this holy of holy nights, what could I possibly say to you of meaning in the birth of a year that we so hope will be better than the last? And I'm not a fortune teller, and I have no idea what tomorrow will bring. And it seems like every year lately, we talk about what an unprecedented year it has been. So how do I tell you what you need for the days to come when I have no idea what the Jewish landscape will look like? How do I give you hope? How do I have the audacity to stand here and preach tonight? I will admit that there were moments when I thought how great it would be to go back in time, to live before the onslaught of the unprecedented, not just of this year, but maybe even several years. And other moments when I thought, if only we could jump ahead to a time when uncertainty, pain, and struggle would be a distant view in the rearview mirror. So that got me thinking about time machines and reminded me of a story that I want to share with you. There once was a young boy who decided he wanted to travel in time. So he took a refrigerator box, 12 rolls of aluminum foil, duct tape, and 6 explosions. He planned to punch numbers on a control panel using a calculator duct taped to the refrigerator box, and punch in any number, step inside, sit for 6 hours, and after 6 hours, he would have transported himself to 6 hours later. He excitedly went to his rabbi, because why not your rabbi, to share his discovery of the future. The rabbi listened and said to him, "My dear child, it sounds like you figured out how to waste time." The boy responds to him, "You call scientific discovery a waste of time? You think sitting in a box reading comics and eating cookies is a waste of time? Fine. You're just going to have to lag 6 hours behind, and I'll send you a postcard from the future." So the boy climbs into the box, punches some numbers, and sits and waits. And after 6 hours, he arrives, 6 hours into the future, and he begins encountering people. "People of the future," he announces, "do not be alarmed by my old-fashioned appearance. I mean you no harm. I know not the futuristic customs and nuances. I am a simple man from a simpler time, 6 hours before you." He sees his rabbi and he says, "Wow, you're not extinct. It's great to see a familiar face." The rabbi looks at him and says, "During the time you were in that box, I prayed the afternoon service. I learned 2 pages of Talmud," because that's what rabbis might do. "I gave tzedakah. I drove someone to the airport. I helped someone with a personal dilemma. I picked up the same person from the airport, and I prayed again." There's so much we can accomplish, and we are responsible to accomplish in a short time, he tells the boy. And the boy looks at him and says, "Rabbi, you don't understand. I accomplished a lot. I read 3 whole comic books, and I even filled out the subscription card inside." While I hope this story maybe made you laugh, the science of time travel is not simply a child's tale. In 1895, H.G. Wells published his novella, The Time Machine, about a Victorian scientist who travels approximately 800,806 years into the future, popularizing the concept of time travel by using a vehicle or device to travel purposely and selectively forward or backward through time, and coining the phrase time machine. Movies have been made, scientists have experimented and reported, and in fact, NASA scientists believe that we have the capacity to travel to the past anytime. Telescopes, they say, help us see the stars and galaxies that are very far away. And it takes a long time for the light from the faraway galaxies to reach us. So when we look into the sky with a telescope, we are seeing those stars and galaxies how they looked a long time ago. I know there's something going on with the sky tonight, and I'd be wondering if it has a similar thing. I don't remember what it's called, but maybe you guys know. There was something in the news today. But seriously, what is it? Say it again. The Northern Lights, that's right, that's what it was. I don't know whether that might be kind of similar. But seriously, if you could travel in time, would you travel forward or would you travel backwards? Would you go back to a moment of your life and relive it, or perhaps redo the moment simply to re-experience it, or to do it differently with the hope of a different outcome? Or would you rather sit in the time machine and travel to some distant time in the future, sitting on the balcony to witness how the past shaped the new reality? This question was put forth to several hundred research participants. The authors were curious which direction people would choose and how their answers would map to aspects of their lives. Interestingly, well, actually, I just want to take a little poll. How many of you would rather go to the past? How many of you would rather go to the future? All right, well, and some of you don't really know or don't care. But what I can tell you that they found is
that there was not a whole lot of statistical difference in overall time travel. 47% of the people wished to travel to the past compared to 53% who wanted to travel to the future. And unlike other polls taking place this month, I have no idea what the margin of error is here. But the researchers found that the reasons behind the time travel included 11% of people who wanted to relive a particular episode of the past, 29% who wanted to travel to the past to gain some strategic information that could be used in the present, 5% wanted to learn about the future of their children or grandchildren, and 41% wanted to experience great cultural or religious events in either the past or future. So I'll totally understand if next year you want to travel back to this Yom Kippur when I'm standing here with you. And there are an additional 14% of responses that were unclassifiable. So here we are, sitting at Kol Nidrei, embarking on this 25-hour period, one which I think is our own Jewish time travel, our travel to the past and to the future. Both are possible, and while I don't want to actually know and won't take a vote at the end of the day which you chose to do, I think that each of us can push the buttons or use a remote control to decide which direction we'll travel today. Think about it. Is there a moment that you simply want to relive, a celebration, a moment of love with parents or children, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a simcha, a professional success, a moment of accomplishment that was a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 20 years ago, or even a lifetime ago? At the same time, from beyond that same continuum, God beckons us to think about where we're heading. And as I mentioned on Rosh Hashanah, in our relationship with God, we have the capacity, through honest engagement, to travel back to the moment of our creation, to redirect the path that we are on, reestablish our foundation, and change who we are. The Talmud tells a story of Reish Lakish, who in his earlier life was a bandit, maybe even a leader of bandits. Like most wayward robbers, he stole from the rich for his own benefit, until he met Rabbi Yochanan, one of the great Torah scholars of that generation. Reish Lakish became one of Rabbi Yochanan's greatest students. He made tshuva, he reformed his ways, and Reish Lakish became one of the foremost teachers in tshuva, teaching us Gedolat tshuva shezdonot na'asot lo kizchiyot, that so great is tshuva that mistakes can become merits. Through proper repentance done in love for God, he taught, we can cause God to forgive and forget our sins and actually have the capacity to go back in time, not only to neutralize our past mistakes, but to transform them into positive deeds. Regret, confession, recompense, and genuine attempts to act differently. Our visit to the past changes the significance of that moment, allows us to see it differently, and to understand that the boundaries of time are not as fixed as we may have thought. Moreover, it can change how God sees the action and how we are then viewed by God. You can travel back to that moment, rewriting the ending, perhaps through an apology that is needed, a reckoning of who you were when that happened, the clarity of which can help you see other choices in new light, a removal of a false mask behind which you were hiding, alienating you from who you were meant to be, or a cleansing of the burden that others imposed on you. Perhaps in traveling back, you can see your own inner light and receive God's loving caress. Allow yourself this Yom Kippur to travel back to that time and rewrite. And just maybe by tomorrow night, after Yom Kippur, you might see that past has become very different. Alternatively, or maybe simultaneously, on this Yom Kippur, the weight of the world or whatever is happening in your own life beckons you towards the future. How will this moment shape the future me? What will be with my family? How will history tell the story of this moment in Jewish life? The time machine of this day has buttons for the future as well. So hop in and let's travel. And it turns out the Talmud has a story for that as well, because let's just admit, the Talmud has a story for almost everything. When Moses went up to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah, he found God tying the crowns of the letters on the Torah. If you've ever seen the inside of a Torah scroll, you know exactly what these crowns are. They are the ornate additions at the top of certain letters. If you haven't seen or you don't remember and you want to, come have an aliyah or join us in 10 days on Thursday night, the 24th, for Simchat Torah, when we'll roll out several Torah scrolls to particular places. Moses encounters God putting these decorative finishes on the letters, and he can't understand why God doesn't just use block letters. This is kind of the equivalent of when we used to actually write letters as opposed to using computers. So Moses asks God, Mi me'akev, who is preventing you from giving the Torah without those decorative additions? God explains that these additions were important and necessary, that in the future there would be another Jew named Akiva, as in Rabbi Akiva, one of the most prolific rabbis of the Talmudic period, 2,000 years after Moses, who would pore over them and derive new interpretations from each and every one of these crowns. So God tells Moses that Akiva will be doresh. He will expound al kotz v'kotz on every thorn and thorn, mountains and mountains of Jewish law and Jewish interpretation. So God was placing these crowns on the letters, but Rabbi Akiva was going to expound the thorns that adorn the letters. Let's get back to Moses, because he just doesn't get this. He says to God, show me how this works. So God says, Chazor le'acharecha, return behind you. Return behind you and go forward. Right? I'm guessing this wasn't the kind of time machine of refrigerator boxes and aluminum foil, but Moses is instantly transmitted thousands of years into the future to Rabbi Akiva's study hall. So Moses enters and sits in the back, way in the back, kind of like what we tend to do in shul. And he listens to the hum of the learning as Akiva delves into the intricate details, explaining ideas and interpretations that Moses himself has never heard. Imagine Moses, our greatest teacher, the one who spoke to God face to face, feeling confused and uncertain. He doesn't understand Akiva's teaching, and Tasas Kocho tells us the text, that his strength literally waned. He lost his breath. He lost his footing. He lost his balance. Have the people abandoned Torah as God had warned Moses would happen at the end of his life? Have the people corrupted Torah so completely beyond repair? Or worse, imagine him wondering in the future, will I no longer matter? Will I not know the Torah that will come thousands of years if I were to live in that moment? In this moment, Moses experiences something that many of us have felt when looking at the past. He questions his own role, and he sees the immense wisdom of Rabbi Akiva, and it troubles him. Why, Moses asks, didn't God just give the Torah to Rabbi Akiva? But the story doesn't end there, because in the holding of his breath, he witnesses one more piece. From where did you derive this learning? Asks one of Rabbi Akiva's students to Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva responds, it's halacha Moshe miSinai. It's a law from Moses at Sinai. And this time, nityashva da'ato. Moses has caught his breath again, and his mind was put at ease. He recognized that this new teaching would grow from the Torah he himself had received and taught, and that the innovation of Rabbi Akiva was only possible through the foundation that Moses himself had laid some 20 generations earlier. I think this story speaks to a universal human experience, that unsettling feeling when we look at how things have changed and wonder what that means about our own past. Like Moses, there are those of us in this sanctuary tonight who look at our lives and the world and see new ideas, new innovations, new generations, and feel that same imbalance. Maybe in your professional life, or in your family where your children, whether they be 4 or 44, make choices so foreign to what you were taught. Or in this sacred community when you find yourself experiencing Jewish customs that feel so different than yesterday or those of your childhood. And behind those observations, we are really asking, did I do enough? Did I learn? Were my contributions meaningful? Are we somehow lacking? But God's answer to Moses offers profound insight. God reassures him by showing him that everything Rabbi Akiva taught is rooted in the Torah given to Moses at Sinai. Akiva himself attributes his teaching to Moses, acknowledging that even the most complex interpretations stem from the foundations that Moses laid. God's message is clear. Moses' role is not diminished by the greatness of Akiva. In fact, it's because of Moses that Rabbi Akiva can do what he does. They are part of the same chain, the same unfolding story. When we see the world changing, it's easy to feel as if we have been left behind, as if what we once knew or contributed is no longer relevant. Like Moses at the back of Akiva's study hall, we are paralyzed in not understanding how in the hell things have changed. It happens when we see changes in the world or even changes in our own life. But in one sentence elsewhere, the rabbis remind us, Al tomar mehayasha yamim harishonim hayu tovim me'ele. Do not say that those days were better than these days. Just as Akiva's teaching built upon Moses' Torah, our future is always built on the past. The foundation that were laid for us and that we are laying now in our own lives, in our families, in our community, at work, they're already shaping the future in ways we may not be able to see or understand. But those contributions that you made and are making, your kindness, your wisdom, your efforts, they're all part of a much larger story that unfolds after you're gone. We honor the past by allowing it to inspire new growth and transformation. We are not called to be static, but dynamic, just as the Torah itself is described as Eitz Chaim, a tree of life that grows and evolves. Your life today matters. Your decisions, your choices, your influence, the way we live our lives now will echo in ways we cannot predict or fully grasp. Do not despair and never give up, for your legacy is alive and well in the future. We have 24 more hours, approximately, maybe 23 by now, 23 more hours in our Yom Kippur time machine. Whether you travel back to relive a moment in the past, or you travel forward to ponder the foundation you are laying for your own future or that of your children and grandchildren, or both, I hope that our time together will be for you a journey of self-discovery and personal insight in the peace of knowing that we are all part of an eternal story. And in case you need to know, Yom Kippur comes with its own subscription card for the day after, a month later, and an entire year. Gamar Chatima Tova. We're going to turn to page 246 for Aleinu. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל,
לתת גדולה
ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה,
שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגאור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך
מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בכובעי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשב אותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא השוכן בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקבל לך נעלים. כי המלכות שלך היא עולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We invite those reciting Mourner's Kaddish to remain standing. Everyone else can be seated on page 247. Sorry. Yes. We acknowledge the following Yortzites: Fega Bear, Max Basowitz, Ruth Rissman, Linda Fishman, Vicki Hessen, Dr. Sidney Rabina, Richard Myers, Paul Steinger, Maury Rappaport, Aaron Givant, Sophie Bass, Ed Berkson, Daniel Roberts, Flora Schatz, Sam Nagel, Louis Goldstein, Margot Favouche, Archie Korloff, Isidore Waldner, Charles Shapiro, Melvin Jules Parnas, Rose Belinkoff, Abram Persian, Lillian Dubansky, Teresa Lipsy, Sally Clearman. And with apologies if I pronounced any of the names wrong, we turn to page 246. Grant that the memories of those who have gone before us be a source of strength for us and for all of Israel. May the sources of our departed find peace in your sheltering care, and may we all be blessed with peace, tranquility, and the fullness of life. Ikadal v'ikadash shmei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'amei u'maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela, le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'yalma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shmaya, le'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, huya oseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May be seated, page 248, the psalm for the season.
David Adonai ori b'shim imira. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti bevet Adonai kol yemei chayai lachazot Lachazot benoam Adonai, ulevaker beheichalo. Lachazot benoam Adonai, ulevaker beheichalo.
Last line at the bottom, Kaveh el Adonai chazak v'ametz liblecha, v'kaveh el Adonai. Put align yourself with God. Be strong and of good courage in your heart, and put your hope in God. I'm going to sing a melody. As you pick it up, feel free to sing along with me. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh el Hashem. Chazak v'yametz libecha. V'kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh, kaveh, kaveh el Hashem. Kaveh el Hashem. Chazak v'yametz libecha. V'kaveh el Hashem. We may sing that again tomorrow. But I want to just tell you what that line means to me, because it's that melody in particular, which is a chant, almost a meditation, to think about not just hope, like the word, the Hebrew root for word, tikva, kaveh, is the same Hebrew root for line or a line. So I think that when I sing this line, I'm imagining what I'm doing is aligning myself with God, and that's what gives me the strength and courage to face whatever is happening. And that's through these words of, right, Kaveh el Adonai, align yourself with God. Chazek v'yametz libecha, strengthen and put courage in your heart and have hope. And it's only when we can align ourselves with God that we can actually somehow find a way to strengthen our heart, to live in the actions of hope and of positivity. And with that, I'm going to invite up, are you doing announcements? No? Okay, I guess there's not announcements, but I'll tell you what the announcements are that I know about. And if I leave any out, you'll let me know. So tomorrow morning, we'll be back here. I believe we'll be here a good part of the day together. Probably around, I always hate to give exact times because then people start watching the clock, but I'm going to guess it's going to be somewhere around 1:45, 2 o'clock that we'll have a break. During the break, we have 3 people who will be teaching, Missy Walderman, and Andy Goodman, and Russell Brayman will be teaching. I don't know the order. Do you guys know the order? Okay, well, and then we'll be back together in the afternoon for Mincha and Ne'ilah, and then a break fast at the end of the holiday. I also want to make sure you know, as I mentioned in my sermon, that a week from, this coming Wednesday night starts Sukkot, and there will be services Thursday and Friday, and then of course Shabbat morning. And the following week, we have Shmini Atzeret starting Wednesday night, and on Thursday morning there'll be Yizkor again. Thursday night is Simchat Torah. I'll be back for that, and we're planning a communal dinner, rolling out of the Torah. Java Jews will be here, and a service with ending this Torah reading and beginning the Torah in the cycle. And then we'll also have Simchat Torah morning and Shabbat. So I hope that you'll look at the emails, come join us. I'd love to see you again, even after tomorrow, so come and join us. Did I leave out anything? Oh, the town hall meeting on Tuesday, the 22nd. You should have received information about that. And anything else?
Tomorrow, the family service
and
the teen discussion will both be taking place during the Torah service, so approximately 10 o'clock. And there will also be Barb Hirsch-Giller is doing the alternative prayer 10 or 10:30? This 10:30 in the main classroom.
Great. Yigdal, page 250.
Yigdal Elohim chai ve'yishtabach nimtza ve'enet el metziuto echad ve'en yachid ke'ichudo ne'elam megal ein sof le'achduto ein lo demut haguf קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר יורק גדולתו ומלכותו שפע נבואתו נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את אמונתו תורת אמת נתן לעמו אל היה נביאו נאמן ביתו לא יכל לפעל ולא ימיר דתו לעולמים לזולתו צופה ויודע סתרנו מביט לסוף דבר וקדמתו גומל האיש חסד כמפעלו נותן לרשע רע כרישתו ישלח יקץ ימין משיחנו לטעון מחקקץ ישועתו מתים יחייל ברוך עשו ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו מתים יחייל ברוך עשו ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו.
Please rise for one last closing prayer. Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, God of our ancestors, we ask on this Yom Kippur that you bring us to a place of faith, a place where we can acknowledge our own faith, where we can see ourselves in our full capacity, where we can see each other, and where we can literally see the goodness in the land of the living. For you are our light, and in your light we bask today and always. And let us all say Amen. Gamar Chatima Tova. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott and I will handle the Torahs. I have a suggestion for this microphone situation. This one. What? That one can pick up everything. The small one. That's what I'm saying. She can do that. Put it up two lectures. Well, I wouldn't can't take it.
Okay.
So, you know how to turn the one on?